Well, China's not blinking. Trump's tariff trade war has not caused them to even flinch. They have refused to come to the negotiation table. In fact, earlier today, Donald Trump was asked whether or not he'd be willing to lower the 145% tariffs in order to get China to the table. This is what he had to say.
In order to have substantive negotiations, you have to bring down your 145% tariffs. Are you open to pulling back your tariffs in order to get China to the negotiating table?
No. So he's not going to do it. And this actually comes on the heels of Scott Bessent just the other day saying that out of all of the trading partners that the United States is trying to negotiate with, only China is not speaking to the United States.
There are 18 very important trading relationships. We are currently negotiating with 17 of those trading partners. China, we have not engaged in negotiations with as of yet. So I expect that we can see a substantial reduction in the tariffs that we are being charged, as well as non-tariff barriers, currency manipulation, and the subsidies of both labor and capital investment. So that is proceeding very well. Many of our trading partners have approached us with very good offers, and we are in the process of renegotiating those. With the economy, I would say that this is a three-legged stool: trade, tax, and deregulation. Trade was first. The House, according to Speaker Johnson, expects to move their portion of the bill over to the Senate on or about the Memorial Day, so we're looking forward to that. And then deregulation necessarily takes longer to affect the economy, but I would expect in the third and fourth quarters, we would see substantial benefits from deregulation that by this time last year could be at full force.
Okay. But the main thing is him saying
there are 18 very important trading relationships. We are currently negotiating with 17 of those trading partners. China, we have not engaged in negotiations with as of yet.
Yeah, that's because China has absolutely refused to talk to the United States at all about the tariff war. They have just ignored the whole thing. They retaliated with their own tariffs, I think 125%. And then other than that, they've just gone silent. Now, there's a bit of an update. They are going to meet with the United States this weekend in Switzerland. They have agreed to show up and listen. And that's pretty much it. The United States requested the meeting, and China said, yeah, okay, fine. We'll be adults. We'll show up. We'll listen to you. But that's about it. Their foreign minister, it's going to be Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who shows up, and his delegation, as well as Lin Jin, who is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for China. And Lin Jin said the meeting between Chinese and U.S. senior officials on economic matters was requested by the U.S. side. So China's not even asking to meet. I mean, so this isn't working. Then they said recently the U.S. has said repeatedly it wants to negotiate with China. The tariff war was started by the U.S. China firmly opposes the U.S.'s tariff hikes. Meanwhile, China is open to dialogue, but any dialogue must be based on equality, respect, and mutual benefit. The pressure or coerce China in whatever way simply does not work. We will resolutely. Sorry, guys, I didn't have enough caffeine today, I guess. We will resolutely safeguard our legitimate interests and uphold international fairness and justice, is what China said. So they're basically showing up at the request of the United States to just listen. And that's it. They said when they were interviewed and had a few more discussions, the New York Times reported that China's basically said, look, we're not going to, we're just going to listen because we want to hear what Donald Trump is really up to. Says the Chinese want to find out what Donald Trump is really up to, and you can only get this by engaging in direct talks, said Wang Jinwei, an associate professor of journalism at Hong Kong Baptist University, saying that, China is coming at this in the position of strength because China has refused to blink or even flinch at the tariff war. China is the one in the position of power, and they just want to hear the United States out and say, what is it exactly you want? We're trying to figure out what it is you want. And you know what? I'm trying to figure out what it is the United States wants, because really what Trump went after in 2016 was the trade imbalance. Well, there's nothing you can really do to coerce the Chinese into buying American products if they don't want them. You have to make products people want. You can't just say, you have to buy our products because we buy your products. Well, if they don't want our products, what are we going to do? I mean, we have to actually manufacture products. First of all, that's part of the problem. We don't manufacture anything. So I'm curious as to what the United States wants. The U.S. wants to level out the trade imbalance. But again, how do you do that? You can't coerce or strong arm your way into that. So what else is it? It's that the United States wants China to open up its market to capitalism. That's fundamentally against China's economic model. They're not going to do that. We do that. So the Chinese are allowed to come into our economy. They're allowed to siphon resources, buy property, buy land. They're allowed to do all of these things because we put everything up for sale, including our politicians. But they don't. And we cannot strong arm them into a system that puts everything in China up for sale, including their politics. They're not going to go for it. So we have to figure out what it is we can do, and what Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is throwing out there is things like currency manipulation. Well, China hasn't done that in years. It's been 10 years. There's all these things that China's going to sit there and just look at them without any expression on their faces. And I can just see it now. The Chinese just sitting there, blank face, saying, we're just willing to hear you out. Like, what is it you want from us exactly? Lay it out. Spell it out. What do you want? And we'll see if we can actually come to some sort of understanding first and foremost. But I think the understanding is the big thing. Says that finding out what Mr. Trump wants from China and what he's willing to concede in negotiations would be useful to Beijing as it figures out its response. China has also been trying to persuade other countries not to cave to pressure from the Trump administration's efforts to isolate China by imposing tariffs of their own on Chinese products or by decoupling from Chinese manufacturing. China's central bank and its financial regulators on Wednesday took their biggest policy steps yet to shield the economy from the trade war, moving to shore up the economy with a series of steps to make it easier for banks to lend money and get people spending. So China's taking steps to keep its economy robust while it's going through this tariff war. But what is the United States doing? I mean, here we are. We're just going to end up with this, which we're going to start seeing in about a week or two. The real impacts of the trade war, to the point where the government is now having to cave on some things. For example, it's looking like strollers and car seats are going to be getting a break from China's tariffs. So we're having to now go through the list of all the things we've slapped 145% tariffs on, and we're having to say, well, but we're going to have to make an exception for here. We're going to have to make an exception for this. We're going to have to make an exception for that. Why? Because Americans are being harmed by it. So now strollers and car seats are going to get a break from China's tariffs. The Trump administration is considering, this is from Barron's, the Trump administration is considering trade exemptions for certain baby products made in China and imported into the U.S., a move that could ease costs for households that are bracing for tariff fallouts. 90% of all of the baby stuff is made in China. So you've got all of these struggling American families having children. You know, the government's trying to entice people to have more kids. But how do you do that when the cost of having a kid is so expensive? And then on top of it, you slap tariffs on baby products that are already expensive. And now they're going to go up 145% at minimum. And so the government is now having to do carve-outs. So there's just going to be all these individual carve-outs that happen because each group is getting affected, and it's Americans that are being harmed, not the Chinese. The Chinese aren't even blinking. So that's what's going on here. President Donald Trump said he'd think about it in response to a reporter's question about Bessent's remarks, saying, I don't know, I want to make it nice and simple. He says, we have to make it very simple, but I'll have to take a look at it. This was after Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told members of the House Financial Services Committee on Wednesday that tariff exemptions for car seats, strollers, cribs, and other baby supplies that come from China are under consideration. So, yeah, I mean, we're going to see that this is how China will wait us out. They know that the American consumer, which we are the largest consumption country in the world. So we love to shop. And they know this, and they know that Americans are not going to go long without getting their fix. So all they have to do is wait us out, because it'll be Americans who scream the loudest. It won't be the Chinese and the companies that are being harmed. You know, they're selling to other countries. They're okay. Yes, they're taking a hit, but the Chinese government is doing what they can to shield them, because the Chinese government knows that Americans are a fast food market. We like things, and we like it now. We don't want to have to wait. We don't play the long game. We're not like the Chinese. They'll wait it out. They'll plan. They'll say, patience, young one, right? That's what they'll say. We in the United States don't have that type of mentality. We want things right now. So they know they can just wait us out until mom and dad start screaming about the cost of cribs and car seats. And suddenly there's no tariffs on that. Small business owners start screaming about the cost of imports and they're collapsing. Mom and pop shops are going under. So what happens then? Then tariffs get eased for certain products for them. And then there's the next group and the next group and the next group and the next group. And then suddenly you only have tariffs on just a couple of things. And those couple of things don't actually matter. So that China, I think, is figuring that out. And it's not taking long. I mean, here we are. We're only a month in to 145% tariffs. And already the administration is saying, well, we need to make some carve-outs for baby products. So China has also said that they're not willing to have any discussions about the tariffs. They're going to wait us out. They're going to go and listen. They want to hear, like, what is it exactly you want? I think you always have to find that out. And I think it's the responsible thing to do to find out what is it you want exactly. Like, tell us specifically, lay it out very specifically. What do you want us to do? And then we'll consider whether or not we can do that. That is a fair thing to ask for. And that's what China's going to ask for in Geneva this weekend. But China's also saying the United States must correct its wrongful actions, that doing this was not the right way to go about this, whatever it is that the United States is trying to get out of China, and that the United States has to back down in order to have the negotiations. So we'll find out if Trump does. If he says, all right, fine, we'll drop the tariffs so that we can have a negotiation. It's got to, China's smart, and they know that Trump needs to look like he's winning. So, and they're not ego driven, so they don't care. You know, they'll let him look like he wins. They'll let him come out and say, yeah, I'm the big man now, and I was able to get them to back down. So because they're coming to the table, you know, I'll be the nice guy and I'll drop the 145% tariffs for now. You know, he'll do that, and it makes him look like I strong-armed them. They're now coming to the table. We're going to make a deal. It's going to be a good deal. So to be a nice guy, I'm going to drop the tariffs. That makes him look good. I think that's what they're going to allow. And in the end, I think they're going to get what they want. And so and it was a gamble for Trump. This was a huge gamble. I agree with him. We need to bring back American manufacturing. We got to figure it out. But we've got to start investing in that infrastructure. And China, they're in a position of strength. And I think that's just the new reality that we have to live in at this stage in the world. But they're stone cold, stone faced. They're not blinking. Thanks for watching this clip from the full Kim Iversen Show, which you can check out Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. The show airs live. It is a 1-hour live show Monday through Friday. Just head to KimIversonShow.com. See you there.